Hands down, I have to call this one the best boy of the series. Cryptors are full of unique people, but this one, I like this guy a lot. We know he's an average mage with the ability to command high-level servants despite that. Similar to someone we know exactly. He was going to get Caster, as he had little mana capacity and needed a servant who would use mana efficiently, and ended up summoning the last Russian princess Anastasia Nikolaevna Romanova in her domain of power, Lostbelt 1, Russia. And we finished off his entire career, killed his girlfriend, and left him confused until some time later. Sure, from that description he sounds pretty pathetic, but he has a development story that I find very satisfying. Spoiler alert, we will see Kadoc back in action and join Chaldea in Trom. Of course, for those who follow NA, this info is still a spoiler, but his intention to help has been seen from when we were still on Olympus. Whatever, I mean, I also follow NA, but already know some future plot points, so just continue watching. With that, today we're going to have some fun talking about his life, a little trivia about him, and how powerful this simp is. Sorry, but, well, he really is a bit of a simp. Of course, we're not going to explore his struggle to defend Russia in the Permafrost Empire chapter, because most of us know that he lost miserably. As I said earlier, we finished off his career, killed his girlfriend, and left him temporarily confused. Let's start with his name. Zemlupus is derived from the Proto-Baltic word zemlya, which can mean country or land, and lupus means wolf. So combined, they mean country of wolves, or with a bit of a stretch, land of beasts. Resonating with his last name, he ends up with a lost belt filled with wolfmen. Now, Kadoc was originally a decent, if somewhat somber guy who genuinely wanted to save humanity. Once he learned that the protagonist, a mediocre magus not so different from himself, managed to do it all on their own, he snapped. And you know what happened? He tried to prove himself capable of saving the world, only to have that world destroyed by Fujimaru as well. Poor guy. He specializes in anti-wild beast magecraft, which is excellent for the Yaga and demonic beast-infested Russian Lostbelt, but rather useless in the modern era where most phantasmal species are either extinct or self-exiled to the far side of the world. So, the Zemlupus family actually dominated the power during the ancient era, where there were still many monsters roaming around compared to now. One thing to note, he has some visible dark circles under his eyes, something Peperoncino noticed and asked if he was sleep-deprived or stressed, to which Kadoc roughly replied that it was both. It turns out that these dark circles under his eyes have a significant reason to his strength. He stated that it was actually because his magecraft specialization required its users to always be on the alert for powerful non-human enemies, so other users had them as well. He has a strong will towards learning and constantly practicing, despite the fact that among mages, hard work is almost pointless. He admits that he hates most mages because of this, hates how they look down on him and his mediocre sorcery despite his hard work, even though they have done nothing to earn the great power passed down by their ancestors, and are highly respected. Da Vinci noted that for every hour Kirshtaria spent practicing, Kadoc spent dozens more, yet the gap between the two remained insurmountable. Now don't think that his learning efforts were in vain just because he was outclassed by the usually superior offspring of noble-blooded wizards. Because he studied so much, Kadoc's thought patterns became flexible, and he had many plans for every problem. Like a chess game, he is a chess master, or a person who is good at manipulating and making plans. In Russia, once he learns that Chaldea is coming to his Lostbelt, he makes plans to overthrow the king of his Lostbelt, Ivan the Terrible, by manipulating events that force the Chaldea to cooperate with him while trying to isolate Fujimaru from his allies. He even states that he is collecting pawns when discussing his plan. Not only that, he also did something to twist Anastasia's summoning, increasing her power at the expense of most of her memories and making her as brutal and cruel as the Yaga inhabiting the Lostbelt. With all the meticulously crafted ideas, Kadoc's manipulative plan went flawlessly, except for one critical miscalculation at the very end. He believed he would be stronger than Fujimaru despite his extensive experience. Kadoc only truly breaks down when Anastasia takes the shot intended for him, resulting in her death. We know Kadoc was later captured by Chaldea and released by Rasputin, and his status became unknown for a while. And we meet him back in Olympus. Interestingly, he helps heroic spirits from normal history. He even helped Fujimaru and Mash several times on Olympus. This is exactly what Anastasia expected of Kadoc, where she made a promise with Kadoc not to die, and no matter how evil Kadoc was, he would always do something good at the end. Another unique ability of Kadoc is that he can use several simple spells that he stacks into a combo spell that can be quite effective, compared to everyone else on the team who has a very noticeable heritage or abilities. In Olympus, he managed to evade Musashi, who was trying to stalk him, by combining an invisibility spell with a fast movement spell that effectively worked like teleportation. Another example, in Trom, he uses camouflage to hide himself and Fujimaru from enemies, lightning bangs to immobilize and distract enemies, and his tracking ability is featured in gameplay as an ignore-evade buff that he can grant to servants. After being beaten by Doman for knowing too much about foreign gods, he was rescued again by Rasputin and eventually taken care of by the Chaldean crew. We know that later he woke up and helped us in Traum as the 6th Ranger. Well, additional master. By defecting to Chaldea's side, he finally gets the chance to prove his ability by working to save the world as he wanted to in the beginning. He's a lot happier too now that he's gotten his wish and drops his grudge against Fujimaru. He shows far less resentment towards Fujimaru in Traum than he did in Russia. He does still find Fujimaru's lack of knowledge of magecraft annoying, but is much better at managing his frustration. Look how happy this guy is. Look, is this the face of a person holding a grudge? Angry? Maybe. But I know in his heart, he's happy. Oh, don't worry about him betraying. He said that he was tired of betrayal and wanted to do what he could for the future. Now hit subscribe or Kadoc will come visit you at 3 a.m.